Okay, congratulations. We have made it all the way to the end of your biology internal assessments. You have your background done, your materials and methods all set up, and you have your data collected. So now we're going to talk about how we do our analysis and evaluation sections. So the first thing that you're going to have to do, wherever your data is you're going to have to enter that data into this specific table format. So this is usually your table one. And so, first things first, you need to have a descriptive title, a completely descriptive title. What were you measuring? And what species was that in? And what was your independent variable? What were you changing? Um, and so, in addition to this complete and descriptive title, you need to include the measurements. So, if this was your plant growth, were you measuring it in meters? What are these numbers? So, this would be in centimeters if you were doing plants. If you were doing the yeast growth or the bacterial growth, that was the absorbance in nanometers. And then you also need your level of uncertainty. So what this measurement is, it's the smallest value that you could actually measure for your data collection. So if you were using a ruler to measure the plant length, that would have been 0.1 centimeters. That was the smallest unit of measurement that you have, so you have to include that uncertainty there. If you were doing using the spectrophotometer, that one gave values out to 3 decimal points, so your uncertainty would be plus or minus 0.001. So these items have to be here for your raw data table. The other thing that needs to be here um, are your conditions. So everyone should have had a control. And I think in the template I have conditions one, two, three, or whatever. You cannot pick that. You have to change that. So for your experiment, it would say control. Maybe you were studying the effect of salt. So this would be like 1% salt, 2% salt, 3% salt, or 1% shampoo, 2% shampoo, three, whatever it was for your experiment, that's what's going to go here. Across the top, you would have the different trials. So she was measuring different leaves. Maybe this would be each individual plant number one, plant number two. Maybe it was tubes, tube one, tube two. So whatever that is what would you would have in here for this table setup. And then you would enter the data in this specific format. So, note of caution. You have to have only as many decimal places as what you had in your levels of uncertainty. That's not going to matter so much with your raw data, but when you start calculating your average and your standard deviation, it completely is. So let's look at how we calculate those averages and those standard deviations. So on the left side, this was your raw data. This was the data as you got it when you were doing your measurements. On the right side, you need your averages and something called a standard deviation. So for both of these, you're going to have to transfer your raw data to a Google Sheet, and you're going to have to use some of the tools that are in Google Sheets to be able to do that. So we'll go ahead and show you how to do that right now. So if I get out of here, I'm going to go to, uh, I would go to my Google Drive. I would make a new Google Sheet. And so I just went to drive.google.com and I clicked new Google Sheet. So again, you would have to set up your table where you have your trials, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of whatever they are across the top and whatever you're testing along the side here. And so say this was, where is it? Say I'm looking at this data table, and I know I'm skipping between IAs here. Um, I would have the control, which is the raw. I would have boiled. I would have oven. I would have steamed. So he only had two groups. So let's say there was another one. Microwaved. I don't know. So what you would do is he's got his 5 replicates here. You would take your values and you can type them. You can copy and paste, doesn't matter. 789, did I type it over there? Yeah, 0.789. He's got pretty consistent data here. It's pretty good, which you would expect from the spectrophotometer. Right, and 0.621. Okay, so once you have one round of data entered in here, so you would have for each group, you're going to have your 5 trials. To get the average and the standard deviation, you could calculate these by hand, but that's not fun. So what you can do is you can click in this column where you have already put average and standard deviation. You can put equal, and you can type average. Sometimes it'll come up for you, sometimes it won't. You would do open parentheses, highlight these here, do close parentheses, and push enter. So once you have that value, you can mouse over this corner, click and drag, and it will do it automatically for your other ones. So it's giving an error right now just because there's no data. So that's how you would get your averages. So standard deviation works pretty much the same way. You click in the standard deviation tab, you push equal, and you would type stdev. So it's probably coming up on mine because I've done this a couple of times. It may or may not on yours. So once you have that open parentheses, you would click, highlight, or type in the cell numbers. That's an option too. Close parentheses and hit enter, and it will give you your standard deviation. So from there, you can copy and paste with Control C, Control V, or you can just grab the corner and drag it down. And so once you have these numbers, that's how you would get your average and standard deviation. So notice though that when I calculated it, okay, it's not doing it right here. It could have given me, or actually this is incorrect because my averages, in this case, my data has 3 decimal points after it. So I should have 3 data points after each one of these. So I'm going to come over, hover this little decimal thing, and I'm going to go out to 3. I went too far. So this would be the average and standard deviation that would have to go back into my raw data table for this data here. So however many decimal points are in your data, it has to match. In your standard deviation. So you would, once you calculate those over here, put all your data in here, you would get these numbers and put them back in your process data on this side. So, how do I? See, this is what I don't understand.